In DeKalb County, Georgia, tragedy struck on the afternoon of June 13, 2025. Inside an apartment on Columbia Drive, 2 lives were taken far too soon. The victims were 29-year-old Tomika Pullins, a young woman known for her quiet strength and determination to build a better life, and her 7-year-old niece, Dior Scott, a child with a bright future just beginning to unfold. Both were shot and killed in what police quickly confirmed was a domestic-related incident. The attacker was someone Tomika once trusted, someone she had recently tried to escape from after enduring repeated threats and violence. When the shots rang out, other family members inside the home were forced to watch in terror as their loved ones' lives were stolen in an instant. Officers with the DeKalb County Police Department arrived on scene around 2:49 p.m. They attempted life-saving measures but were unsuccessful. This is the story of Tomika Pullins. Authorities later described the crime as senseless, confirming that this was not a random act, but one rooted in domestic violence. The men responsible fled the scene, prompting a police manhunt. At that time, he was still on the run, while a grieving family was left behind to process the unbearable loss of both the daughter and of child. Tomika Pullins was just 29 years old, a young woman with a gentle spirit, a hardworking nature, and a quiet strength that had been with her since childhood. Growing up in a family that stretched every dollar, she learned early on how to survive struggle with grace. She was funny, a little shy, and hopeful for her future. At 22, while working at a hospital, she was still learned about love, still curious about what life could offer, still believing that stability and care were possible. That hope led her into the path of William Almond, an older man who promised attention and stability. What she found instead was control, volatility, and eventually terror. Despite the rocky beginnings, by 2020, Tomika had married him. She worked 2 jobs, helped with his small businesses, and even supported him through health crises. She gave him loyalty, she gave him time, she gave him love. But as his health deteriorated, so did his patience, self-control, and kindness. Drugs fueled his paranoia, and his love became threats. He turned their home into a battleground and his Facebook page into a diary of rage. By January 2025, the abuse was no longer hidden. He pointed a gun at Tomika's head simply because she didn't laugh at his joke. That was the moment she decided to leave. She moved in with her sister, filed reports with the police, and did everything survivors are told to do. She called 911. She leaned on family. She sought help. But help never truly came. Despite clear threats and repeated reports, authorities failed to protect her. On multiple occasions, he showed up uninvited, broke into her home, and waved weapons in her face. Each time she begged for safety, she was met with paperwork, delays, and excuses. Meanwhile, his threats escalated online for the world to see, public, time-stamped promises of violence. On June 13, 2025, the warnings became reality. When Tomika refused to let him inside her apartment, William Almond broke through a window and opened fire. Tomika was killed instantly. So was her 7-year-old niece, Dior Scott, an innocent child whose only crime was being near the aunt she adored. Dior's life had barely begun. She should be preparing for school this fall, laughing with friends and celebrating birthdays. Instead, her name is etched into a growing list of children stolen by domestic violence. The aftermath has left 2 families broken. Tomika's father, Tomika Pullins, said what the world can see clearly. DeKalb County failed his daughter. Reports had been filed as early as January. A gun had been pointed at her head months before. She had warned them. Her mother, Nikita Bruce, buried both her daughter and granddaughter in the same month. She remembers the chilling threats he made, promises that if Tomika did not return to him, he would kill everyone in the house. He carried out those threats as the system looked away. Instead of blowing out candles on July 3rd for her 30th birthday, Tomika's family lit them at her grave. Instead of shopping for Dior school supplies, her family wept over a tiny coffin. Tomika did everything right.
She left, she reported, she sought protection, yet none of it saved her. Because in America, women are told to just leave, while the men they leave are given endless time and space to hunt them down. This was not love gone wrong. This was not a tragic argument. This was femicide, terror carried out by a man with a fragile ego, a gun in his hand, and a system that looked the other way. Tomika Pullins and Dior Scott should still be here. Their deaths are not the result of carelessness, but of a society that protects abusers more than it protects women and children. May their names be remembered, may their families find justice, and may the anger over their stolen lives burn hotter than any excuse offered in defense of inaction.
Here's a deep analysis of the story of Tomika Pullins and Dior Scott. 1. Victims at the center. Tomika Pullins, a young woman who wanted love, stability, and a chance at a better life. She worked hard, helped her partner, and later showed immense courage by leaving when the abuse escalated. She followed the rules that society and law enforcement often prescribe, reporting incidents, moving out, calling 911, and seeking help. Yet, the system failed her. Dior Scott, an innocent 7-year-old child who had no involvement in the conflict. She was collateral damage of unchecked violence, highlighting how domestic violence doesn't only destroy partners, it devastates families and communities. The system failures. Tomika filed multiple police reports, January, April, June 2025. Each showed clear escalation from threats with a gun to forced entry to stalking. Yet, no meaningful intervention occurred. Authorities delayed serving him papers, claiming they couldn't find him, even while he was actively posting threats online. When Tomika called 911, she received bureaucracy instead of protection. After her death, police responded with overwhelming force, helicopters, dogs, 15+ cars, but only after it was too late. This raises the painful question, why weren't those resources mobilized when she was alive and begging for help? The angle of gendered violence. This case is an example of femicide, the killing of women because they are women, often by intimate partners. It also shows how patriarchal entitlement operates. William believed he owned Tomika, that she was his rider, his proof of masculinity. When she refused to comply, he punished her with lethal violence. Dior's death symbolizes how domestic violence doesn't stop with the partner. It consumes children, families, and generations. 7. Broader social commentary. The story highlights a recurring issue in domestic violence cases. Women are told, just leave. Tomika did. Women are told, call the police. She did. Women are told, file reports. She did. Yet none of it saved her. This exposes a systemic gap. The responsibility is placed on victims to escape, while abusers are allowed freedom to stalk, harass, and ultimately kill. The story is not about love gone wrong. It's about power, control, and systemic neglect. 8. Emotional impact. The double tragedy, losing a young woman at the start of her adult life and a child just beginning hers, hits harder because it feels preventable. The haunting detail of Tomika's birthday, July 3rd, being celebrated at her grave, and Dior's absence from school makes the loss deeply personal and relatable. It leaves the audience angry, not just at the abuser, but at a system that failed to stop him. This story is not about a toxic relationship. It's about femicide, systemic neglect, and a cycle of violence that society continues to overlook. Tomika and Dior did not die because of poor choices. They died because William Almond was enabled by indifference,
loopholes, and a system that values paperwork over women's lives.